you have to struggle to learn something. Like that's just the way that learning works. There has to be struggle. But if you struggle because you're confused about the instructions, then that's not the right kind of struggle. That's frustrating and not constructive.
I guess like I've stayed up pretty up to date with the AI stuff. Like I love using it. I'm not a skeptic, any of that stuff, but I haven't like been sucked in by MCPs. So maybe like, what am I missing here? Tell me the pitch for it, and then we'll go into some details.
It's not just the integration between the LLM and your service, but it's the integration between your service and this other service that the LLM kind of naturally makes happen. So this is what's really exciting, because for me, that's Jarvis from Iron Man.
What about, have you seen the A2A from Google? And like, how does that compare with MCP? Like, are they overlapping in a lot of ways? Are they different use cases? What's going on there?
Yeah, they overlap a lot more than Google wants you to believe. So I like, in my mind, they've probably been working on this protocol for a long time, and then MCP came out and they're like, dang it. But like, Google, like they're not going to stop just because somebody else did something. So
okay, so sell me on this Jarvis idea. What's up, folks? Today we have Kent C. Dodds on the program, and I love Kent. I've just learned so much from him, not only just from like React and web development, but also just like teaching on the web and all kinds of stuff. So I'm really excited to have him on. He's now making a course, Epic AI, that is about like developing with AI, making MCPs, model context protocols. So he walks me through all that stuff because I still did not know that much about it. So like, it was really fun talking about that. Also just talking about how AI has changed education, running Epic Web Conf, travel, all sorts of things. So Kent is just like a great guy and fun to have on. As always, if you have questions, comments, guests that you want on, reach out to me or to Sean. And with that, let's get to the show. Kent, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Alex. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. Like someone I've learned a lot from, looked up to. You know, you've been on the show with Sean before, but I didn't get to talk to you then. So glad to have you on here. I would just say, like, I assume most people know you, but for those that don't, like, probably one of the, if not the premier, like web development teacher educator on the web today, and also just like expanding into other things, which we're going to talk about today. I'm really excited about that. But maybe for folks that don't know you, could you just introduce yourself to them?
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. So I live in Utah in the United States with my wife and 5 kids. We're expecting our 6th coming up in November.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah. We're pretty busy in this house. And I've been a full-time educator since 2019. Before that, I was on the side in the evenings, hustling a lot, working in industry. I did take a little bit of a break to build Remix, and I didn't create Remix. That's a common misconception. I jumped in after it was already well underway. But I worked hard on building the community there for 10 months, and I was pretty impactful on making the Shopify acquisition happen as well. And so then once we sold to Shopify, I was kind of like, yep, my work here is done. I'm going back to teaching full time. Not that I wouldn't want to work at Shopify. It's an awesome company. They've done a super good job with the project too. But just wanted to go back to teaching. And so then I created Epic Web Dev and now moving on to Epic AI. So I guess I created testingjavascript.com while I was still working at PayPal. Then that worked out enough that I could go full-time teaching. Then I created Epic React and taught tens of thousands of people React. And then, and now I'm getting into the AI stuff.
Yep, for sure. It's been fun to watch your journey. And like, truly, you have been like very influential for me. Like, I had my own book that I released in like 2020. And like, as I was sort of like researching how to do that, like you, Joel Hooks, Adam Wathen, like researching how can you make money on teaching and do that stuff, like was super helpful. And like, just like leading the way in some of that stuff. So like super helpful, changed my life in a lot of like awesome ways. So really appreciate it.
I love to hear that. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned your kids. How old is your oldest kid?
She's 12. She'll be 13 pretty soon in July.
Oh wow. Okay. Exact same for me actually. But like, have your kids gotten into programming and development yet, or like where are you at with that?
Not really. Like a little bit. My my son, the second oldest, has gotten into using AI to create stuff, and so he's just like the two oldest really enjoy writing stories and books, and my son is using AI to help him craft his. And my daughter, I think, in rebellion against that idea, has been handwriting hers. So.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, and then he wants to code and stuff, and I got him a book, and actually I got my daughter a book a few years ago as well. But he just doesn't have enough patience to learn about like the syntax and stuff. And I think the book is just not the way that I would teach programming, which like you need really quick wins and like I accomplished a thing that is like actually solving some sort of problem or something, even if it's really simple. And now, like these days, teaching programming to somebody brand new should probably involve a lot of AI and helping people like figure out how to use AI to be productive and get those quick wins.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. I've had like a little trouble getting my kids interested as well. Like there's some interest there, but like not enough. Yeah, I got them like a Raspberry Pi like project kit a few years ago, and they kind of did it for a while. Yeah, it's been hard to do that, but I always remember like, man, I wish I would have started earlier because it's just like so much fun what you can build and things like that. So
yeah, I'm not too concerned about it. I kind of just let it. The thing is, you really can't predict what is going to be valuable in the future with the way things are going anyway. And so I just as soon say, yeah, you do whatever is interesting to you right now, and we'll figure out what your career is going to be when that's relevant.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so let's skip into like the meat of this and like speaking of like predicting what's going to be popular in hopefully the near future. I think you've like staked your flag in like this idea around MCPs being like a big deal, and I'm just seeing like more and more people talking about it. I guess like I've stayed pretty up to date with the AI stuff. Like I love using it. I'm not a skeptic, any of that stuff, but I haven't like been sucked in by MCPs. So maybe like what am I missing here? Tell me the pitch for it, and then we'll go into some details.
Yeah. So like a lot of people are saying MCPs, and there's a lot of excitement around it. And without taking too much time to understand its implications and stuff, they assume that it's overhyped, which I think is appropriate considering the tech industry's inclination toward hyping things that aren't don't have any real value. I'm thinking about well, I shouldn't say don't have any real value, but the hype is way beyond that real value. So I'm thinking of blockchain and NFTs and Web3 and whatever like DIDs and all of that stuff. So there's definitely value there, but it was way overhyped. I think some people think that AI in general is overhyped. I definitely disagree with that. There's already a lot of value that's being provided to not just developers, but regular people as well. And so MCPs come in to fill a gap that we have in the AI space. So let's talk about that a little bit. So a couple of years ago, ChatGPT shows up and is like, hey, look, you can talk to an LLM. And why was that such a big deal when we've actually been able to talk to LLMs for years? Well, the reason it was a big deal was because it brought it to regular people. Like you don't have to run the model on your machine or have some sort of cluster and then like send commands to it through a terminal interface or something. It's on the web. Anybody can do it. And that's why it was a big deal. And then like, of course, the models, have always been improving. And so the model was good enough to actually be pretty good at answering questions. But the problem was that it couldn't actually do anything useful. So you had to bring in the context. It couldn't like bring any more context than its training data. And then you had to take the information that you got from it out of that context and put it in wherever you need. So you like copy paste the code and explain, what you need it to do, and it'll change that. And then you copy and paste it back to where you're going. And so people started building wrappers around LLMs, and we got Copilot and stuff with VS Code. And so like integrating LLM experiences within other applications, which is really powerful. And a lot of people started working on that. But the problem, one of the problems there is that like if you have 30 different apps that all wrap an LLM, well, you have to somehow get the necessary context for each one of those things to understand your preferences and the way that you like to communicate, and they're all going to be a little bit different, and so not really the best user experience there. But like it is definitely better than like figuring out the product and clicking the buttons and whatever, doing it yourself. So time goes on, and we realized that it would be really nice if our chat applications could actually perform actions on other services. And so ChatGPT or OpenAI comes up with this plugins or these tool calling idea. And then now your LLM wrappers have this idea of being able to do tool calling. And like even with ChatGPT, you could say, "Here's my REST API. Like go wild with it." But that never really took off because it just wasn't very good. Like if you look at a REST API, yeah, sure, I'm gonna like reserve a ticket for an event or something, but like sometimes you have to call 3 or 4 REST endpoints for any interaction, and the AI just doesn't know that you're supposed to do it in this right sequence or whatever. Take the data you get from this endpoint and pass it into this one, whatever. And so it's just not a really great mechanism, and it's not a standard mechanism, so people aren't building around the same thing. So yeah, the AI can do stuff, but it can't do enough. And most of the integrations had to be manual and built by OpenAI or by Anthropic or by Google. And so the real like eventually we can have all those integrations, right? But I think this is the same problem that we ran into with Siri and OpenAI and Google Assistant and like Alexa and all of these tools. I apologize to anybody whose phone is going crazy right now, but the problem is that there's a finite number of people who can work on those integrations, and on both sides of the fence. So if we've got a Slack integration, and you're talking to Google, well, okay, you're going to probably have an engineer who's like kind of dedicated to the Google integration and make sure that that integration works well because it's a big number of your users. And so this is just a problem of finite resources. And what that means is if you're not a big player, if you're not Slack, then Google is not going to integrate you into their assistant. And so, yeah, maybe they add some special APIs, but now you are responsible for building a special integration with Google. And now you also need one with Apple, and you also need one with Home Assistant, and like you're just building integrations, all this glue code. It's a big pain. So what if we could just have a protocol that's like specified that you can just expose this server, and then an AI assistant from wherever can integrate with that with your service without any glue code necessary. And so that's what MCP is. It's just a standard protocol for communicating between some client and some server, with some specific use cases that your users are going to typically have. And then the user can use natural language with the LLM that already understands them and also has the ability to work for them with other services. And so that it's not just the integration between the LLM and your service, but it's the integration between your service and this other service that the LLM kind of naturally makes happen. So this is what's really exciting, because for me, that's Jarvis from Iron Man, or the computer from Star Trek, being able to integrate any service. And what's cool about this too is that the engineers at Slack can just work on their MCP server, and they don't have to work on integrating with the 30 different apps that their customers are using, because this gives an option or a potential, because this isn't implemented everywhere, but it's a standard that we can implement, and then it opens the doors for integrating with anybody without extra lift.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, and then so just like architecturally, if say Slack or whoever makes their MCP server, is that something they are hosting totally themselves, like as a service? It's like mcp.slack.com, or are they like creating this thing and then can go grab, like just pull that off GitHub, run it like add his like Slack tokens in, and now he's got like his local Slack MCP that's like can interact with the Slack service, and it's maybe calling out to the REST API or doing different things like that. Like, where architecturally does an MCP sit?
So I think like the quick answer to your question is the vast majority of MCP servers will be hosted by the service provider. It makes the most sense. And like in my vision of the world, the AI assistant that you're using is going to supplant the browser. So we won't be like, a lot of us are already kind of doing that. We open up, I do this myself. I open up ChatGPT before I open up a Google search, right? And so I think that the browser will either evolve into an AI assistant or it will just be eliminated because people are using AI assistants instead. And then the MCP servers will replace websites. And so now instead of us having to go to the website, we just talk to our AI assistant and it can do all the things that we could do on the website, not by clicking and all of that, because that's highly inefficient for an AI. It's just a lot easier to communicate over this protocol. So for that reason, I think the vast majority of use cases are going to be remote servers. But there are some really good use cases for local servers. Like there are, maybe you have a server that communicates your current location, and that needs to run locally. You're not going to be able to determine the user's location, or integrates with Bluetooth devices or whatever. And maybe some of those things could be built into the AI assistant, kind of like how those things are built into the browser. But I think, and then there are other use cases for like modifying files on your file system and querying a database on your local device and stuff. And frankly, it's easier to build a local MCP server because you don't have to worry about where you're going to host it, and authentication. You just provide it tokens and you're the only user. So like you could just hard code stuff if you want, if you're writing it yourself. So there are use cases for both. The early days of MCP, everybody was doing it locally, and the clients that we have right now, lots of them don't even support remote MCP servers yet. So you have to use some sort of proxy to make that work. But yeah, in the future, most of them will be remote, and most of them will be hosted by the service provider. And like you said, it'd be like mcp.slack.com is probably how, and that's what PayPal does already. It's mcp.paypal.com.
Okay. And then so just, you sort of touched on this, but like contrasting with a REST API, it's a little bit less like all the low level, resource level building blocks and more of like, hey, we're probably exposing higher level workflows where maybe you need to affect a few different resources. Is that like the difference between those two?
Yeah. So there are actually already tools where you can take like Swagger or OpenAI Spec API or Open API and turn that into an MCP server. But the problem with that, again, is that the AI assistant just doesn't know what to do with that. You could,
like, it's just like too much. Is that what you like? There's too much going on.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily too much. It could be, and we can talk about what LLMs can do about too much information. But it's that it doesn't know what the most appropriate thing to do could be. Like there are endpoints that kind of look like they could do similar things or whatever, or it just forgets to call this one endpoint to delete the post before creating a new one, or like who knows. And so instead, what's better is to write your suite of tools for specific use cases that users have. And sometimes that is as simple as like, if you're Slack, okay, edit a post, that's typically going to be one REST API call. So like some of those things are going to map very nicely to your REST API. But that's also that's a use case that users have. Like, I want to edit this post. So like you want to think about your website and look at all the things that users can do. Those are the things that you expose in your MCP server.
Gotcha. And so do you think it'll be like sort of a combo of that where, hey, maybe like most of the stuff or like the foremost stuff you expose are like these higher level use cases and things like that. And if I'm thinking about like your documentation, those are like the guides or the tutorials. But then you also do have like a reference section that like goes into the deep details, and that has like all your API endpoints. If the LLM's like, hey, something I need to do isn't going to like just happen like within one of these like core workflows, I can go out to those. Or like is that a right way to think about that mixed approach? Or
yeah, Possibly. So right now the LLM suffers from what I call tool overload, where it just has so many tools that it can't. It's hard for it to decide which one is most appropriate. I experienced this already with. I have an MCP server for my own website, and one of the things that you can do with it is subscribe to my newsletter. And sometimes I would ask Claude, "Hey, can you help me subscribe to Kent's newsletter?" And it would say, "Yeah, sure. Let me open the browser," because I actually had another MCP server for Playwright. And so it would open up the browser to my website and then go fill out the subscription form, which like technically that works, but it's less efficient. And so this is a problem right now. I expect that to get better. But what I think is even more likely, or I think also will happen, is we're going to need to have a Google for MCP servers. So like it's things are very clear for me in thinking about MCP servers, or rather taking a step further back, thinking about the AI assistant as a human. And if you think about the AI assistant as a human that you give tasks to, it's like a human assistant. You're the CEO and you've got this assistant. You can do whatever you want. Then you say, hey, I need to accomplish this task. And that assistant is either going to just know because you've done it before. And so it remembers, oh, these are the tools that I use to accomplish that task. Or it's going to have to go figure it out. And so it's going to go to Google and they're going to look up, okay, how do I, do whatever it is that they're asking me to do. And maybe it'll take a couple of different services stitched together to make that happen. Like, okay, I'll book the soccer field and then I'll contact the parents and then I'll add it to their calendar, right? So we're doing all of this. So I think the MCP servers, that's why thinking about them as the future of websites makes a lot of sense because, the LLM is going to say, well, I don't know what tools I need. So it will instruct the host application to say, hey, go find me the tools I need, like these things. That host application, I think in the future, will talk to some sort of index like Google and say, here are the tools that I need, give me back the results. And it will give back a number of results. Maybe the human will be in the loop there and say, yeah, I want to choose these tools. Go ahead and use those. And so there will be this dynamic tool discovery. And what's cool about that too is if the tool doesn't work, then that can feed back into the registry or to the index and say, hey, this tool didn't work for this task. So like it can use that as kind of its page rank algorithm thing. Or it did work. Okay, great. So now not only can we tell the registry that, yeah, this is a good tool for this task, but also the LLM can save that in its memory. So if you ever do this again, it just knows which tools to use. And so I think that we don't need to, like right now, the way that this works is you install these MCP servers or configure these integrations. And the LLM just sees, here are all the tools. Like there's 50 tools that you can use. And it gets confused. I think in the future, there will be basically one tool that's just discover tools. And then it will have a much more limited set of tools that it ends up using.
Yep. Okay, interesting. I want to talk about the Jarvis stuff at some point and get into that. I got a few more MCP questions before we go. Like number one, I guess how mature is this? If should I be building these now? Should I wait for it to shake out? How are we feeling about where it's at there?
Yeah. I would say it's pretty early still, but there's a lot of opportunity and potential here for stuff. I think if you're the type of person that really likes to be in early on stuff, then this is a really good time for you. If you're cool just coasting and letting things progress without you, then that I think you're probably fine letting it go for a little bit.
Are there frameworks, or am I mostly doing this by hand, or what does that sort of look like?
Yeah. There is an SDK that's official, and there are community SDKs as well. I don't know that I would consider anything to be at a framework level that I've seen yet, but it also is not just JavaScript either. There are SDKs in all sorts of languages. Some of them are official, and others are community led. The spec is actually it took me about an hour to read the whole spec. And so it's not a massive thing yet. I expect that it will grow to be similar to the JavaScript spec eventually. It's just massive document of all the things you can do. But so right now it is pretty early. And the biggest thing that's holding us back is the client experience. But Claude just launched their web interface for adding remote servers yesterday. They call them integrations, which is perfect because regular people don't want to use the term MCP. It's just an integration. So that experience is a lot better, but it's like fully authentication, like OAuth 2 workflow or flow and everything. You've got a bunch of really big players who already have MCP servers, Sentry, Linear, PayPal, and Stripe. Actually, yesterday was Cloudflare's MCP demo day, and it was so cool. And Stripe demoed a utility or like a SDK for paid tools, so you can configure. Yeah, users can use this tool, but they have to be subscribed to this specific thing, and they can do it 10 times for 10 cents or whatever. It's really actually very cool. So there are, and I've actually built an app that's only accessible via MCP. It's a journaling app. And so that is possible, and it's pretty neat and interesting. I would say most developers are who are watching this are probably listening or building a website, some kind of web app or something. Just add a /MCP or add I host everything on Cloudflare for this stuff. Cloudflare is phenomenal for this. But yeah, just host something on Cloudflare. The biggest challenge probably will be authentication, but you can do some read-only stuff just to explore. And then you'll be in a better place when your boss comes to you and says, "Hey, you know what? I think we want our users to be able to talk to our app."
Okay, tell me about Cloudflare. Why is Cloudflare so good for this? Or are you using Cloudflare more broadly for like almost everything, or like why do you love it for this use case?
Yeah, so I've been interested in what Cloudflare is doing since they started their workers thing back in like 2017, but I never really got serious about it myself because I'm not really a serverless guy. I don't want a constrained environment. I want to be able to run long processes and stuff like that. So I went with Fly.io, and I've been really happy with Fly. And you could absolutely use Fly to host MCP servers. There are a couple of things I need to establish before I talk about why Cloudflare is so great. So first, we talked about how you can run MCP servers locally, and you can also run them remotely. The specification defines how the client and the server talk to each other, and it also, I'm not sure that this is necessary to be in the spec, but it does have like some specifics on the transport layer, on how those messages get from the client to the server and back and forth. And it's an important thing to note that the client can make requests to the server, and the server can respond, but the server can also proactively send messages to the client. One of those is really cool. We can talk about later. It's called sampling, where the server can say, "Hey, I actually need your LLM to do something for me. So can you approve that? Have the LLM do the thing and send it back." So that's a proactive message that the server can send. This is very cool.
Okay, wait, and just to make sure I'm clear, like my LLM has called out to the tool starts working and realize it needs more from the LLM. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that could be one scenario where yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
It's very interesting, and I can talk about some more specific examples later. But this aspect of the protocol is actually pretty important on the architecture that you choose. Well, another thing to think about too is it's not just for sampling, but it's also the tools that your MCP server has available can be updated over the lifetime of the experience. So, for example, if you have an app that's 100% only accessible in the MCP like I do, you want to be able to say, here are the tools that you have available. You're not logged in, so there's not a lot. Like you can log in, you can get information about like the tool or the server or whatever, but like you can't actually do anything yet. And then once you log in, then I'm going to say, okay, great, now you have new tools that you can use. So there's also that proactive updates of tools and things. So because of this, we can't just do request response for MCP. Because you need to be able to have that two-way communication. So that means you need to have a long-lasting connection, and serverless just like that. That is not how serverless works, right? Like serverless request response done in 10 milliseconds. That save money, all that good stuff. So clearly, this is going to be a problem for people who are investing heavily in serverless, both the users and the infrastructure companies like Vercel. And so they like raised a flag and like, hey, MCP, we want to play too. Can we like, throw us a bone? Like, how can we make this work in a serverless world? And so the way that the spec originally said that the HTTP protocol worked was via server sent events. And so if you open a connection and then the server can send events as it needs to over the life of that connection. Not a very common thing that people really use these days. People just move over to WebSockets most of the time. But the problem with this is that like scaling that is hard. And this is part of the reason why Fly is not a super great option. Well, there's a caveat to this. So my Fly website runs on a bunch of different boxes all over the world. That's part of the reason I chose it, was so I could run globally. But each one of those boxes supports like 200 connections at once. I could probably raise it. I don't know how high it goes, but eventually it's going to run out. And if I had a bunch of people using my MCP server, they have their client open. It's ready at any moment to talk to my server, and I need to have those connections open at all times. And so this is a problem because I'd run out of connections. An alternative to this that would still work on Fly is you actually spin up dynamically a box for each connection. And so each one only has one connection. And that's something, and you spin it down when they're done. That's something that Fly can do. I'm not sure what the cost structure would look like with something like that, but I have a feeling that it would be better with Cloudflare. So with Cloudflare, they've been able to do real-time stuff for a long time. Sunil Pai built PartyKit on top of Cloudflare durable objects, and it's doing all the real-time stuff. So no problem over there. So anyway, getting back to Vercel being like, hey, we want to play too. They added a feature to the spec where you can actually have a request response, and the response just streams in stuff as needed, but like it is short-lived. So it can be like, hey, I need to make a tool call. Okay, let me do the tool call and send you back a response. And now we're done. We're not talking anymore. No open connection. So you do miss out on the ability to like update the tools available, like any proactive stuff, no sampling, all of that stuff. But for lots and lots of use cases, that's all you need is just request response. So anyway, the reason I think Cloudflare is so well suited for this is because they can exercise the full spec without any trouble, and they are everywhere. So your code is just global, and wherever the user is, they're going to talk to something that's 20 milliseconds away from them, which is something you really want when your users are global and they're talking to an LLM. And users are typically okay waiting a little bit longer talking to an LLM than they are clicking on a link. But still, like, you don't want to make your users wait. So I prefer Cloudflare because of the global nature and the fact that I can use the entire MCP spec. So there you go. That's the long answer to your simple question.
That's the pitch. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I like Cloudflare. I've like dipped my toe in and used a little bit of it. It's interesting. Like I really want them to be like more full featured and competitive with AWS. So I like that they're like continuing to add some of that stuff. We still got a ways to go, but like it's fun. And like, I like the stuff they're doing. The biggest thing for me is like figuring out the mental model. Like durable objects are just different than like anything else.
Yeah.
And I like need to sit down and like really take the time to dig into them.
So the one-liner for me on durable objects is stateful serverless. That's that doesn't click for everybody, but eventually that will click.
And I can't figure out like how stateful, where the state is, like how local it is compared, like where is it shared? I know like Sunil, you mentioned like different chat rooms maybe have a different durable object. I just don't understand. I gotta like figure it out and figure out how that stuff works.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, you mentioned the MCP spec. If I look at the spec, is it going to be pretty similar to like just general REST API type principles? Is it going to be like kind of like a little different and goofier, more like GraphQL type stuff where it's just like, hey, one giant post request to one endpoint? Or like how similar is that going to look to what we know with REST based stuff, but maybe a little less resource based and a little more like RPC or what's that look like?
Yeah, it's RPC. So it's actually based on Oh gosh, what's I lost it. It's the protocol that language LSP, language service protocol. So it's yeah, these messages are encoded in JSON with like here's the method I want to call and here are the arguments for it and whatever. Um, yeah, I wouldn't say that it's quite like REST. Like your mental model is not thinking about entities and CRUD operations and stuff, but more about performing remote procedure calls. And so yeah, that and as far as like how the spec reads, it's using a lot of client should and server must and stuff like that. So it does read like if you're an experienced engineer, you should be able to read it and totally understand what's going on. If you're not, then like you'd probably get most of it anyway.
Yep, gotcha. Is auth pretty similar in terms of just like, hey, a bearer token in a header, or like what does that look like?
Yeah, good question. So authentication is OAuth 2. Well, 2.1. So like you have to support Pixie and stuff. But yeah, so the SDK manages the transport for like including the tokens automatically. So I haven't like written this raw, so I haven't had to include those or save those tokens anywhere. That said, I probably will get into that in like when I'm working on testing this stuff, and so I have played around with it a little bit. It is not fun in these early days. Like it's just nobody has done anything, and like LLMs cannot help you with this at all. If you're working at that low level, I don't expect that people will need to work at that low level. They're like unless you want to be the one who builds the tools to solve these problems. But
what about like sorry, just to interrupt. So like you mentioned Anthropic integrations, Cloud integrations that just released. So if I like add an integration, maybe I OAuth to Linear or something like that, is just Claude just storing my tokens for me in my DAI and everything? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then they manage the like refresh tokens and all of that stuff. And this is one of the things that's really nice about Cloudflare is they've invested heavily in this, and their MCP utilities actually they include an OAuth issuer implementation. And so they handle all of that, the refresh tokens, the grants, the client registration, dynamic client registration, everything. And so like once it shows up in your MCP server, you have the user and you can just do whatever you want to with that. You do have to implement like the approve page and like a couple other things. But yeah, especially if you're building an app that like is or an MCP server that is in front of another app, then once you get past the OAuth 2, you can authenticate with that app however you want. You can like generate a one-time use token or whatever you want to do. Or if you actually do already support OAuth, then the spec was just updated to make the MCP server just the resource server. So you could actually tell the AI assistant and tell the client, hey, go authenticate with this service and then use the token that you get from that thing to talk to me, which simplifies things a lot because if you're working at a big company, you probably already have OAuth. And so you just use that. If you're not, then maybe you're okay just using Auth0 or WorkOS or something to manage this. And so you just point to them and then they give you a token back and now you can get the user from that. So that's a really nice improvement too.
Okay. What about, have you seen the A2A from Google and like, how does that compare with MCP? Like, are they overlapping in a lot of ways? Are they different use cases? What's going on there?
Yeah, they overlap a lot more than Google wants you to believe. So I like in my mind, they've probably been working on this protocol for a long time, and then MCP came out, and they're like, "Dang it!" But like, Google, like they're not going to stop just because somebody else did something. So yeah, then they released their thing, but in their blog post, they were very careful to say this isn't like stepping on MCP's toes. Like this is what's the word I'm looking for? Complementary to what MCP is, which is not the case. So MCP is a protocol for between clients and servers. And in my world, the way that I think about this mostly, I'm thinking about user interaction. I've been front-end developer, like that's my primary thing for the last decade plus. And so that's what I'm thinking about is how do our users interact with our services? And so the client is going to be your AI assistant, and the server is going to be your server, and that's where you write lots of your code. So great. But there's another aspect of this that is put into the spec that talks about how MCP servers can actually also have MCP clients that connect to other MCP servers. And so you don't have to be an AI assistant to be an MCP client. And even like your MCP server could use AI on the back end there too to talk to these other services too. So yeah, there is definitely like this idea of orchestrating a bunch of different MCP servers in some way. And people already do this with just the MCP protocol. And A2A is agent to agent. The goal there was like, okay, let's take all these backend agents and have them communicate over a standard protocol. So yeah, when they say, oh, this doesn't, like, this is a complementary thing, I don't know their mind, but what I think that they're saying is MCP is for the assistant, A2A is for the backend. And that's probably what they would like. But yeah, I'm sorry, but MCP already covers that too. So I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
I haven't, I read the blog post. I haven't read the spec yet. I'm not super interested. Nobody else other than Google has really said that they're going to do anything with it. And MCP, Anthropic is the one that put it together. So naturally, Claude is going to be the first one that actually comes out with a good implementation. But also, Cursor has implemented it, and Windsurf and VS Code. OpenAI has actually released an SDK that has support for it, and they've committed to doing more with it. And then Google has, like the CEO, also even posted on X that they're going to implement MCP support. So
yeah. Might already be dead in the water. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Nobody knows the future. Like MCP could also die. Like you just don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. On that note, like you mentioned earlier, like you don't jump into like crazy trends or stuff like that. I guess like what caught your eye about this and made you think, hey, this is going to be like a pretty big part of the future here?
Well, so I've been thinking about this for over a year. Mostly my friend Ryan Florence got me thinking about this. We actually drove last year. We drove to two conferences. One, we live in Utah. He's like a 25-minute one-wheel ride from, or 25-mile one-wheel ride from me. But yeah, so we don't live far from each other, and so we rode together down to React Conf in Las Vegas last year, and we went up to Big Sky DEF CON in Montana. And so we spent a lot of time in the car talking. And we spent a lot of that time talking about like, what is AI going to do for the future? And I'm a Trekkie. I grew up with the Next Generation. My dad and I watched that a lot. And so like being able to talk to the computer and have it actually do stuff useful has always been a thing that I've thought would be really cool. Like fighting for a Star Trek future is like more than just that. Just like the idea of abundance and you do whatever you want. And there's like, not like the things that really fulfill you in the challenge of discovery, but anyway, and then of course Iron Man and Tony Stark and being able to just like talk to your AI assistant and have it do whatever. So like I'm very interested in being able to do this sort of thing. And so it was we were just talking about like the potential and like, oh man, I think we're going to get there. And then I was working on Epic Web Conf, and once I finished with that, then I went over to Ryan's house. He was actually sick. He was going to speak, but he couldn't. And so I took over his goodie bag to say, hey, sorry you were sick, and here this is to make you feel bad for not coming. And and we just sat there and talking, and I'm like, okay, finally I'm done. What's my next thing? And he was like, dude, you've got to look at what's going on. I don't remember if he told me about MCP. Like I think I'd been hearing about it. And so after that conversation, I went and looked it up, and I'm like, oh, here we are. This is it. Like now Jarvis can do stuff. Like before it was just answering my questions and it was just the big players who could do integrations and stuff. But now anybody can build the integration. And Jarvis can do anything. And so that's when I decided, okay, this is real. This can actually happen. So I'm going to put all my eggs in this basket.
Yep. Okay. How does that compare? Like when you found React? Like, did you know immediately with React? Were you like, hey, this is the future, or like, how did like just looking back on that?
It actually compares pretty closely. Like so I was driving to Angular JS conference in Salt Lake City, the first NG conf, the first Angular conference, and I was listening to a podcast that had Jordan Walk and Pete Hunt on to talk about React. And I'd heard about React from some coworkers, not much. I wasn't like watching the live stream or didn't see like the fallout when they announced React and everybody saying it's garbage, whatever. But it was pretty soon after that. I think this would have been, I think it was 2014. Whatever the first year of NG-Conf was, I think that was 2014. And I was listening to it. I was like, that sounds really interesting. But I'm going to Angular conference. I'm going to go do the fun stuff with that. But like, I had a couple of coworkers, Merrick Christensen. He works at Webflow now. He's just an amazing guy. And he was like, Kent, this is pretty good stuff. And so when people tell me, people that I respect and I know that they know their stuff, like tell me, yeah, you should look into this, then I'm going to. And yeah, it was actually another year before I actually got into React as well. But I'm not the kind of person who jumps on a hype train. But I'll tell you what, once I've decided that's it, then I will hype the crap out of it. I am a hype man for sure. And with React, it worked out. I expect that this is going to work out too, but nobody can predict the future. So we'll see how this works out.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so sell me on this Jarvis idea. Like, it is the general idea, hey, there's going to be this sort of one core super app. There's also like all these supporting sort of MCP type things. So like a lot of people are building MCP things, but there is like a core that just like drives everything day to day. Is that what you're thinking?
That's kind of how I envision it. And I do envision it very similar to browsers and websites. And like that could just be my current experience clouding my future, ability to tell the future, right? It could be something completely different from what anything looks like right now. But that seems to make pretty good sense to me, that it would play out like that. And so what that means is you have a handful of big companies that have made these clients that are like really powerful, very effective, and work really well. Hopefully we don't end up with like one or two big players, but we get like 3 or 4 or 5 like pretty serious contenders. And also hopefully we don't end up with like iOS and Android with app stores, but more of an open web browser type of thing. So nobody has to give you permission to publish your MCP and get it in a registry or anything. It's more like discoverable sort of thing. And yeah, I expect most engineers who are working on websites today will be working on MCP servers in the future.
Gotcha. Do you think like front-end development is sort of dead-ish? Like not today, not tomorrow, but like in the longer-ish run?
Yeah. This is a good question too. A lot of people are wondering about this. I think it's complicated. Right now, if you were to use an MCP server and you say, hey, I need directions to the nearest taco stand, and you have like an MCP server that tells the client your current location, and then another one that does a search on Google Maps, then it's going to put those things together, and then it will like give you text that says, okay, here's the nearest taco stand, and you want directions, right? So, okay, turn left, turn right, whatever. Like, what a terrible experience that would be, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would much rather go to just Google Maps. And so I think that what makes a lot more sense is that the Google Maps MCP is able to, like maybe you do still have another one server that's a local thing, or maybe it's built into the client to tell your current location. And then it sends that information to Google Maps MCP server, and it sends back a UI. And so like, you're not going to visit the Google Maps app or the Google Maps website, but it just sends you the portion of the UI that's useful to you for your particular query. And then you say, oh, actually, I don't want to go to that one or something. And it can just go get you a new map or update the map that you're looking at. And so I think that we do still want UI. Sometimes, like another example would be, hey, I want to time my kids doing handstands, right? Like I'm sure your kids have asked you to do that. And so,
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
So like, okay, I need a stopwatch. So it like it's much easier to press a button that says start and one that says stop than it is to like type start and stop, right, to an LLM like that. So I do think that there's still plenty of room for UI development. Now, whether that like already LLMs are pretty good at building out a bespoke UI that we throw away. Like that's the entire model for Bolt.new and V0 is like, we're going to build you something from scratch and then it's on you. Like take that over to Cursor and now you can build it as a maintainable thing. But like, what if we didn't need to maintain it? Like, what if it was just like a simple widget and the AI generates it and then you're like, okay, great. I don't need that stopwatch. Or actually, this is a pretty good stopwatch. Let me save that. And now it's a little like app on my phone and I tap that and opens up to that conversation I was having. So I think they're...
But totally custom to you and your stuff, and someone else has a different stopwatch on their phone and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or like you could even share that as like a URL or QR code or something. And potentially, I don't know, you could sell it. Like now there could be some sort of ecosystem that builds up around that. But so as far as is front end dead, I don't really think so. Because I do think that there will be, I don't know, that is still kind of a question in my mind, because you could just say, hey, this is our brand colors, and maybe here are a couple of components that you can use that kind of match our aesthetic. Like there's some things that are pretty complicated, like a map with Google Maps, like they have a really dynamic experience. I think that makes sense for them to have. But if we're just like displaying data in like it can build whatever it wants to for that, and maybe it just uses your colors and your border radius or whatever, and then it like that's as much as you need to do for UI. So it could be that most of UI is kind of gone, and design still like matters a bit for producing those things. But yeah, it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so what needs to get better for this world to happen? Is it still like, hey, we need the models to get a lot better, we need context windows to get bigger, we need cheaper cost or faster, or is it really like the application ecosystem? Like one thing that I hadn't even thought about that you were mentioning is like we need a Google for MCPs, like an index that's like focused on that. Is it really more like just the supporting applications around it that's going to take some time to build out, or do we need like a lot of capability improvement to make this happen as well?
Yeah, so there are a lot of things that need to happen, and this is actually kind of the depressing part for me, because I'm not so sure that the big players are going to do this. It's hard for like OpenAI to say, oh yeah, we're going to go from this closed ecosystem to an open one by implementing MCP, right? Like right now they have specific integrations and they could have their own protocol that they develop that's like basically iOS. Like they want to be Apple and they want to take the 30% cut. Although, sorry, Apple, you don't get that anymore. But yeah, like so they could go that direction. I could see that happening. That would be really devastating for the world, I think. But I think we could have both models. Maybe Anthropic is Android and we get iOS with OpenAI. But anyway, so like there's a lot that needs to happen on the client side, that those things that need to be developed. But on top of that too, like if we're using AI this much, we need to work on our infrastructure to support that much energy use. And then like there's a lot of the tools that need to be developed. I had like a whole bunch of other things that was in my mind, and now I'm kind of lost them all because I went on that tangent. But yeah, I think the spec is not done. Being able to support UI is not something that's in the spec. I do have I posted a discussion on the spec to like talk about, okay, how do we support this use case? And so I think some people actually think that the spec already does support this kind of thing, and it's just something clients need to take advantage of that potential. I'm not sure I completely agree with that, but yeah, like that still needs to be worked on. And then yeah, like a Google sort of thing for dynamic server discovery needs to happen. Yeah, there's a lot of things that still need to happen, but I think for people who want to help make this become a reality right now, we just need a lot of people building stuff to demonstrate the potential. And once you get enough people like with this common vision of what the future could be, then you get the people who build the next Google for MCP, or they're building all of these services that integrate in a nice way. And you have Anthropic, who's like, oh wow, we can really, this is kind of opening our eyes in what this could be. And honestly, if you do end up building the next Google, can you imagine how much money you can make from that? Like,
Yeah.
just, I mean, there's funny incentives, and I wonder how you would monetize that. Like, do you just have people pay to rank higher like Google does? Like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I have mixed feelings about that. I like not having to pay for stuff, but I don't like being advertised to as well. So like, it's kind of a tricky thing. But I do think that there could be a lot of money to be made, assuming all of this plays out.
Yep. And I'll follow that up, like, you are so good as an educator and useful and like will help so many people build all these things. And I assume Epic AI is taking up a lot of your time. Do you think you'll jump into the space either building Jarvis or building the Google Index or building some sort of like supporting infrastructure, or just building a company? Like, do you want to stay in the education space? Like, how are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I desperately want to stay in the education space. But the thing is, like, I'm an experienced enough engineer to know both that I don't want to be the one to build Jarvis, but also that I could if I had to, and I will if I have to. Like, if I can see that the incentives are all wrong for Microsoft to jump into this, or Amazon, or OpenAI or whatever, then I don't mind being the disruptor and trying my hand at that. But whoever decides to do this, like, yeah, you can make billions, possibly, right? But like that's the market size of what this could be. But you're going to dedicate the next 20 years of your life to this, if you want to really take it that far. And so if I were to do something, it would probably mostly be working on it enough to inspire somebody else to take my cheese, so that I can go off and do what I actually want to do, which is educate people on how to give Jarvis hands. And so, because I've got almost 6 kids. I want to spend time with them. I really don't want to grind for the next 20 years. I don't need $1 billion. I really don't. And so, I just want to keep doing my education stuff. But I was on a podcast with Tejas Kumar. He has a Contagious podcast. And I told him, if nobody builds this in a year, then I'm going to build it. So
it's going to pull it out of you. Yeah,
I'll just make it happen if it doesn't happen in a year. I would be really surprised. It seems so obvious to me, but I could also be blind. Like, I might not be like seeing something, but it seems really obvious to me.
Yeah. It's a cool future. Tell me about education. Like, how has AI changed the learning and education landscape? Have you seen like a lot of changes?
Yeah, definitely. So early on, I think a lot of educators were like, and students as well, were like, yeah, we got to turn off the AI assistant because now I'm in learning mode. I think that's a huge mistake. Like, learning mode is practicing what you do on the job. Like, that's how you learn stuff. Like, you just practice what you do on the job. And so everything that I've been doing for the last decade in teaching is figuring out how I can simulate that work environment while ensuring that people are practicing the stuff that they need to actually learn, and not get distracted by the million of other things that you could be doing. So, in all of my material, everything, I am saying you've got to keep your AI assistant on. Yes, it's like getting better. And at this point, it pretty much will one-shot every exercise of my workshops. Like, it is, especially the way that I do workshops, is I have instructions that tell you what to do and where to do it, like right in line, and code comments. And so that's instructions to the LLM. It knows exactly what to do. And it's very easy. But the fact that you are in the editor and you are using the AI, and like, one of the most important skills for you right now is reviewing what the AI generates. That's the skill. That is it. Like, that's what we do now as developers, is review AI generated stuff.
It's like being clear in what you're telling it, and then reviewing, making sure it's good.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so, Yeah, so like the instructions that I give in the workshop, it's just like you can also write those instructions on the job. It's not, so like this is all just kind of practicing what you're actually going to be doing. So yeah, it's definitely changed things. And I also have an MCP server as part of the workshop app now, where you can ask it, how am I doing on this exercise? What do I have left to do? And why is this important? And so like it loads all the context from the instructions, from the transcripts of the videos, if you have access to the videos, and taking all of that context, you can ask it questions. You can say, hey, could you quiz me on this exercise on the main topics? And then it will like ask you some questions. You give it answers. It will go back and forth with you if you need some clarifications and stuff. I was going to build this as a feature, as a built-in thing, but the MCP comes along and I'm like, oh, sweet. So I don't have to wrap an LLM and pay for the tokens and stuff. You're already using that. So it just integrates really nicely. So yeah, AI has changed education a lot in a really good way.
Yep. Are you like in this new one, are you making the exercises harder, or at least like making it so they can't take your instructions and just plop it straight into the thing and like, hey, do you like tell them, hey, you need to write the prompt to like achieve this larger goal? Or like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm still kind of trying to figure out where the best place to do that is, because there's a difference between you have to struggle to learn something. Like that's just the way that learning works. There has to be struggle. But if you struggle because you're confused about the instructions, then that's not the right kind of struggle. That's frustrating and not constructive. And so by reducing the specificity of the instructions, I run the risk of making things unclear. And so it needs to be clear enough for a human. And if it's clear enough for a human, then it's going to be clear enough for an AI. And so, yeah, the challenge for the learner now is like, because they could always look at the solution. Like I have the solution right there, and there's a diff tab that'll show you the difference between what you're doing and what the solution is. So that's always been there. And so now it's just a little bit easier to just kind of slip by without understanding. But it's always been on the learner to put the effort into making sure they understand it. And now they can use the AI to help them make sure they understand it.
Yep, for sure. Another question I've asked like other education type folks over time is like, how do you make sure to keep your skills sharp? When you're in the education space where sometimes you're teaching isolated things or maybe not building a builder thing. You build a ton of stuff, so maybe this isn't applicable to you, but like,
yeah, that is the answer. This was one of the big things I was worried about when I got into full-time education was, well, shoot, like I'm not working on a team anymore. I'm not working on a big product for millions of people anymore. So how can I go into a company or to a team and say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to be a team and whatever, like I'm going to teach you how to build a React app when I don't do that. And I haven't been like very secret about this, but I've never been at a company and shipped React hooks to production because I left PayPal right as React hooks came out. And so like I would say a lot of React developers, hundreds of thousands of React developers have learned React hooks from some of my material. And yet I still haven't actually shipped anything at a big company. Now, of course, I've shipped it to production. I've got production environments, and I have hundreds of thousands of people, almost 1 million people who've read my articles on my website. So I do have lots of users. And then on top of that, the workshop environment that I've built over the last decade is a pretty advanced piece of software. And so I get a lot of experience working on that. And now I'm building this, and I've got like my side projects and stuff too, where I'm exploring and tinkering around with stuff. But see, that's the thing. Some educators will like build a couple of demos and then teach about that thing. And I try to avoid doing that. Now, MCPs are pretty new, and I've just gotten into that, and I'm teaching workshops on it already. And so like that's kind of going against what I typically like to do. But I'm just doing the fundamentals workshop anyway. Typically what I like to do is spend like a good year just building something really significant in a particular technology. And then I will spend the next year teaching people how I did that with a series of like 6 or 7 workshops, and then selling it all at once. AI is changing so fast. I can't do that. Like if I spent a year learning everything there is to know about it, then started learning how to teach it and stuff, like everything would be different anyway.
It'll be too different. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to do one at a time. And so spending a really good month going way deep on this stuff has been pretty enlightening. I can definitely teach the fundamentals. And so that's what I'm starting with.
Yeah, for sure. You travel a ton giving talks. I feel like I always see you traveling. Do you?
Yeah, too much.
Yeah. Do you like the travel? Is it something like you have to do as part of work, or like where are you in that? Especially with 6 kids,
Yeah, man. So my wife is full-time mom. So when I'm gone, it's not like it is a hardship on her for sure. She puts the kids to bed by herself and everything, but it's not like she's going to work and having to like figure out things while I'm gone on that aspect. And so, yeah, I feel like I travel too much. I don't necessarily have to travel to be successful in what I do, but I do think that it's really helpful for me to connect with people on both sides of that relationship. And I do enjoy the motivation for me to build stuff, to present, and like to create the content. It really, like, there's a really good way to force yourself to learn something is to say that I'm going to teach it to somebody.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, and then I enjoy that process and enjoy actually presenting that. But yeah, I travel about once a month, sometimes more. I was in Europe 3 different times, like Europe, like 3 times. And also in between those was Epic Web Conf, like running a conference in my hometown in the space of about 35 days just recently. So
that's wild.
Yeah, it was.
Are you taking a break now for a little bit?
A little bit, but see now all the conferences that I signed up before are all like, hey, let's talk about React and JavaScript and stuff. And now I'm getting into the AI stuff. And so I've got new conferences that I want to be present at and make sure, like, especially early on in this space and my time in this space, I really need to make sure I'm a presence there, because I need people to know that, like, Kent is here if you need help learning how to do this stuff. And so, yeah, I'm going to be at a conference in San Francisco, the MCP Dev Summit, May 23rd. And then I'm speaking at that. And then I'm also going to Cascadia JS because they wanted me to come and talk about AI related stuff as well. And so, like, originally the plan was, okay, I'm done. Once we're waiting till the baby comes before I sign up for anything else. But see, now I'm getting into this new space and I have to travel more to make sure I'm a presence in there. So it is important for my business for people to see me doing that stuff. I need to have the actual chops, but also the perception that I have the chops is important too.
Yeah, it's all that stuff. Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about Epic Web Conf, which you just ran. Like, started a new conference from scratch, and from what I could see, like, looked awesome. A lot of good people saying good things and good speakers, all that. Someone told me once, like, when you run a conference, you have to convince speakers and sponsors and attendees all to come. And it's like you need someone to jump in first. It's like everyone's like sort of waiting until someone else commits on that sort of stuff. Like, how did you even go about getting started with a conference? Like, yeah, what was your approach there?
Well, so there are a couple of things there. First of all, I'm kind of in a privileged position because, like, I can be the first one, to jump in. Like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah. And you have some good people, too, like, that are very close with, that'll help you.
Exactly. I have the relationships already. And then also, to top that off, I converted Remix Conf into Epic Web Conf. And so I already had a conference that had a really good group of people. So yeah, did Remix Conf 2 years in a row, and then ran Epic Web Conf last year and this year. And so just having that consistency and then having those relationships with people. And then, like, the thing is, you just have to really care about the community and wanting to make people have a really good experience. And man, it's a crazy amount of work. And I actually have logistics company that I work with, Zero Slope Events. They were actually their first event was that first NG-Conf that I was talking about. And so they've run all NG-Conf. They've done React-Conf several times. I think they're doing it this year as well. They run a whole bunch of other events, React Rally. And so, yeah, I have them. And so they're like basically conferences on easy mode. And I'm just in charge of the website, getting attendees there, getting speakers, and getting sponsors. But even just that is just an enormous amount of work. So,
What's the hardest out of speakers, sponsors, and attendees? Which is the hardest to get?
For me, it's been sponsors. Because they're actually like that. Not only are they going to be sending employees, but they're paying for those employees, and they are paying the sponsor fee. And like they're big companies that have lots of other priorities and stuff. Whereas speakers, most speakers, you're not going to be paying a fee to the speaker, but you're going to be paying for their travel and their accommodations, and they get to be there and they want to because they're other cool people and it's good for their brand and whatever too. So speakers aren't quite as difficult. Like it's hard sometimes to get the speakers that you really want because their schedules don't work out or whatever. My first year of Epic Web Conf, I just had so many people I really specifically wanted that I invited every one of the speakers. And I got most of the people I invited. But second year, I decided let's do a call for proposals and see. There are people I don't know who could probably give really great talks, and that was the case. So, so I've done it both ways, and sponsors definitely the hardest.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's been fun to see, and like congrats on. I don't know, like stepping out. That feels like a hard thing to step out on, of like setting up a whole conference and doing all that stuff. So cool to see.
Yeah, it is. Well, and I technically this is backed by a company because I am an LLC. Like I have a company, but like conferences can cost hundreds of thousands, or if you're doing like render ATL, it's like millions of dollars for a conference. And so if things don't work out, like where do you go for the funds? And so I'm pretty sure we're still waiting on the last couple of expenses for Epic Web Conf. But I'm pretty sure I didn't lose money. And I was at some points expecting to lose 40 grand on that conference.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And if you know that conf they run in Texas and Wisconsin, they have, for the last several years, they have been losing tens of thousands. And I think one year they lost over $100,000. And in fact, Remix Conf year 2 lost 100,000, I think. But Shopify was backing that up. So it's like, okay, it didn't come out on me.
Yeah, at least someone covering it. Yeah.
So yeah, like it can be pretty stressful sometimes.
I always wonder like about the finances of conferences because there's so many expenses involved, like you're saying. And
food, man, food and AV, those are huge.
Yep. Interesting. Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. I want to close off with just like a little more like what you're using and stuff like that, get a feel for that. We've talked a little bit about your app stack. You like Cloudflare right now. I assume like React and probably Remix is most of your app stack.
Yeah. So if I'm doing MCPs, that's going to be Cloudflare. If I'm doing a website, it's going to be Fly. I could potentially look at Cloudflare for MCP stuff. And especially, here's something exciting that Cloudflare is doing. In June, they are going to be releasing a feature called Containers, where they will spin up a container that is just like Docker. Like, here's your Docker file. Anything you can do in Docker. It'll spin up, you can send it messages, and then it'll spin down. This is basically what Fly does. This is a massive thing. And so depending on the cost structure and everything, I might move everything over to Cloudflare potentially. So so that's interesting. But and then of course, it would be React. Like if I'm doing anything with building a web app, it's going to be React Router v7, React, and then soon we'll get React Server Components, and that'll be exciting too.
What do you think about React Server Components?
Initially I was pretty skeptical. Like I remember when they were announced, I was like, wait, I'm not sure I have these problems. Oh yeah, I'm using Remix and I've got loaders and actions. Like I don't have this problem. But that's tied to routes, and React Server components are just components. And so you have this composability model that is just pretty phenomenal. So I'm excited about React Server components. I teach about them. Like, we build a framework out of React Server components, like raw React Server component. We don't even use any tool, no build tools. There's not even TypeScript. Like, this is just as raw as it gets. So you really understand RSEs on Epic React. Because I'm not going to use Next.js. And so with them coming to React Router, I'm really excited about actually being able to use them finally. I'm pretty positive about RSEs.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that's one I've been like slow on. I'm like, you know what? I'll figure it out once it's like really stable and we got the patterns and all that sort of stuff. I just like have not sort of really dug into that as much as I need to. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do? What's your framework of choice and stack?
I mean, so I'm mostly like a back-end guy generally, but now I think with LLMs, over the last couple of years, I've started doing more like just like full stack type works, and LLMs like help a ton in terms of that stuff. But like, yeah, I'm a React Router guy. I haven't even tried Remix. I'm like actually like SPA mode React Router, which I still just love. So then backend will be something I'm doing like Hono, whatever that is right now, which is fine. Yeah, it works. So yeah, and then like I do a lot of AWS stuff, so I'm hanging out there. I do have a little bit on Cloudflare, which I like. Just some of the surrounding stuff, logging, permissions, and things like that is just like not quite all the way there yet. So those are big things. What about like AI type stuff? Like, are you use Cursor or Windsurf, one of those two?
Yeah, I'm on Cursor. I did VS Code Copilot. Then I used Codium from that's before Windsurf. It was Codium. I used Super Maven as well, and there was like one other that was slipped in there for a bit. But yeah, then I switched over to Cursor, and I've been using that for quite a while. And at this point, they're all like, some of them are better in some ways than others, but they're all like pretty good. And I'd rather just be productive with one than like be switching all the time.
Yep. What about models?
Maybe I'm too old.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like I tried Cursor once and did not like it, and then I tried it again like 6 months later, and I was like, I really like this. This is really good, and have not been tempted at all to move off. I just think like this is quite good, and yeah, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Do you play with the models in there?
Yeah, the models, people are always talking about, look at this model, it does this and it does that, and like, oh, they just dropped another model. I have my model set to auto. Like, I don't even know what model I'm using. I don't really care all that much. Sometimes it like I do have a ChatGPT subscription and Claude. And so like and then also I go to ai.dev that takes you to Gemini. Gemini is really nice for like massive amount of tokens that you need to use and stuff. And actually I found Gemini to be pretty good. But they're all pretty good. So I don't know.
They are good. Yeah. I'd say the biggest thing for me is like sometimes I'll do something in Cursor and it'll like go off on like this weird tangent. And I'm just like, no. And I'll like start a new one and change the model and be like, okay, let's get Gemini. It's like a little more constrained. You know, Claude's like kind of wild out there and does some real stuff. But then like, so that's like the only time I really tweak the models too much there. Have you tried any of like the terminal based ones, like either Claude Code or Codex from OpenAI?
Yeah, I've not really gotten into that really. It's interesting, but I don't know. I spend all my time in Cursor anyway, so it's fine.
That's what I think. And it's like you want sort of like the interactive, like pretty fast feedback loop. I think the terminal like is.
I like the diffs.
Yeah.
I like the way that they work in my editor. So
Yep, for sure. Okay, last thing, like what are your thoughts on I guess like there's like the AI super intelligence stuff, AI 2027. Like do you think that's like infeasible? Do you think it's feasible but a long ways off? Like where are you sort of at with ASI or something?
I'm not sure. I don't think that humanity is ever at risk. Really, like I think we need to be good stewards and like think about things wisely. But I have religious beliefs that prevent me from being like existential, humanity's doomed sort of feeling. So I am pretty skeptical that we'll get to an AGI sort of like Ultron sort of future thing. But DAX, Rad recently posted that he thinks that this is about as good as LLMs are going to get. I think there's a pretty good chance that he's right. But whether he's right or not, we have so much work to do to take full advantage of how good they are already that like I've got stuff to do and I'm excited about it.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like I've had like a few moments of panic, not around ASI, but just like around like, oh, is coding or developing like totally going away? Like, especially like early 2023, I was like, oh my gosh, are they just going to automate this? Cause I love my job.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like so much fun to be building stuff. So I've had like one or two things of those. I am kind of coming around that's like, hey, they're getting like marginally better and good at things, but they're still going to need like a fair bit of steering on this sort of stuff. So yeah, but I don't know. I feel like every 6 months I like flip back and forth. I'm like, oh man, this new stuff is pretty good too. So we'll see. But Kent, thanks for coming on. Like, this is great. I love reading your stuff. I've seriously learned so much from you, and it's great to talk with you and looking forward to the Epic AI stuff. If people want to find out more about you, what's the best place for them to go?
Well, thank you, Alex. Epic AI is .pro is a great place to go. Also, kentcdodds.com. That's got all my history of blogs, blog posts and stuff. I also have a podcast on there. So if people want to ask questions, you can actually record your question in the browser, and then I will respond audio, and it turns into a podcast episode. I've got like 250 episodes like that. It's pretty fun. And then, also I'm on X at kentcdodds. I'm pretty much kentcdodds everywhere.
Yep, cool. And I assume that no matter where you live, Kent will be speaking near you sometime soon. You just had to check his calendar or something.
Yeah, I actually Africa, South America, and Australia and Central America. Still, I have not been to any of the, or even East Asia. Still, never been to those. But one day.
Well, if you're from one of those places, yeah, reach out. Kent is looking to travel, right? All right, Kent, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks, Alex.